Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Yesterday, we released a video about number of hours, and we said, well, on an average, you could take 100 hours for Madina Book 1, and you need 300 to 400 hours for Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk. Today, we will also answer another question, which is, Madina Book has very less vocabulary. You need more vocabulary, and so on. Although the reality is that it has enough vocabulary for you to understand, right? It's like comparing a swimming pool to an ocean and saying Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk has an ocean, and we'll come to that. So I spent last couple of hours or so just counting roughly how many vocabulary each book has. So this is the PDF of all vocabs, and this is like 200 pages. So you can see this is book one. This is book one of each lesson, and we'll come to that. I have a sheet, inshallah, of Madina Books, and this is book 2 again now. Lesson 2 vocabulary, lesson 3 vocabulary. But I did not use this as such. I used, the this one, Ultimate Arabic PDF, and I counted, like this, just a rough count, and I'll come to how many vocabulary this much has. Remember, counting vocabulary is a difficult task. Why? Because Arabic is a root letter based language, no? So will you count dhahaba as one word or as 14 dhahaba yadhabu, and then 1428, and then amr idhab 6, because you're going to use all of them, right? So will you count them as 34 words? That's an issue. So I didn't go into that. I just counted this much, and I'll let you know what is the count. So let's go to the sheet of Madina Books, and then we'll go to Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, and I'll tell you how I counted. Book 1 and book 2, I use this one as such. Like I counted these, how many columns, and then multiplied into 2, how many rows, and multiplied into 2. Book 3, also there's a count, but I did not use this. I used the actual book here. So let's come to how many vocabulary does Madina Books have. So let's go to the sheet. And this is what, maybe I can zoom in more. Okay. I can zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, Madina Books rough estimate vocabulary. So book 1 has how many, like if you count lesson by lesson, 32, 58, 50. It's easy for a student to start with Madina Book 1 because it is not vocab heavy. It starts very simple, simple words. Because for adults, I don't know for all, but from what I know is for most of us, for us memorizing vocabulary without any reason, without any this thing is very difficult, right? So Madina Book 1 has 735 vocabularies. 735 vocabularies. I did not go into number of verbs here. It's just the number of words. Although there are verbs, also there are af'al also. 735 words in Madina Book 1. All right. Let's come to Madina Book 2. 735, is it small? Is this a small number? To say that, okay, 735 is just a small number and, it's very less. That's a false claim. 700 words in just 23 lessons. Imagine that. And we are not counting the conjugations on all of that. Because many of the teachers or others, they don't think like a student. They don't think that for a student, 735 words on an average is a big number, right? Especially when they're doing online, just watching videos. I mean, if you have a teacher and all that, just follow your teacher. But I'm talking about those students who are watching videos, right? That's my goal. Where we go. So 735 is Madina Book 1's number. Remember, Madina Books and Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk's war or any other book, for example, is not a new one. Inshallah, maybe a separate video can be made. It's between religious Arabic versus secular Arabic. Religious Arabic wants you to focus on, Quran, Hadith and all that. Secular Arabic are those people who are not concerned about religion. They're concerned about speaking. They're concerned about going to Arab countries and so on. That's fine, right? So that is the war. So many people, when they start off wanting to understand the Quran, and then they get stuck in the secular Arabic. So my main concern is for those people who are into religious Arabic studies, where Arabic is a tool for you to understand the Quran, Hadith, and all that, right? So that's the war, right? So it's not something we should compare at all, because Madina Books is religious Arabic, and Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, I would say, is not totally religious. There are some lessons here and there of Islam, and that to various weak Hadith and all that. It's a mix and match, right? It's a mix and match of Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, but totally it's not. It's all about modern stuff, globalization and all of those things. So 735 words. Let's come to book 2. Book 2, what I did was just give a rough about verbs also. I'll tell you why. Because total words for each lesson, so it's manageable, right? For a student, 24. 20, even though we're not sitting and memorizing them, because the books are designed in such a beautiful way. What happens is he keeps repeating those verbs and words again and again and again. So the main words stick in your brain. You might forget few here and there and all of those, but they keep. If you've done Madina Books, you have an idea that he just keeps repeating many of the stuffs. So just reading the books, all of these are also enough for you to start understanding the Quran. So how many? It has 467 words. Now 143 verbs in it, af'al in it. Now if you want to conjugate this and say, okay, Madi, Mudare, 28 plus 6, 34. If you take Amr also, you're actually earning 4,862 words, because each verb has Madi, Mudare, and as well as you add 150 plus again. You're learning masters also, right? So almost 5,000 words you're learning if you want to go into that route. But we won't go. I just gave you an idea, because you're learning how to make stuff. So if you learn two verbs here, you're actually learning the conjugation and everything. So if you learn dhahaba, you're actually learning dhahaba, dhahaba, dhabu, dhahabat, dhahabata, dhabna, dhabta, dhabtuma, dhabtum, dhabti, dhabtuma, dhabtuna, dhabtu, dhabna. And if you're learning yadhabu, yadhabu, yadhaban, yadhabuna, tadhabu, tadhaban, yadhabna, tadhabu, tadhabani, tadhabuna, tadhabina, tadhabani, tadhabna, adhabuna, dhab. If you're learning amr, I mean idhab, idhaba, idhabu, idhaba, idhabi, idhaba, idhabna. You're learning 6 more. And if you're learning nahi also, it's the same anyways, but I'm just telling. La tadhab, la tadhaba, la tadhabu, la tadhabi, la tadhaba, la tadhabna, and so on. Right? You're actually learning a lot more if you add lam and all those. So learning how stuff works helps you in a shortcut way without, a lot of work. So 467. Now let's come to Madina Book 3 is where he increases the vocabulary. People don't do Madina Book 3 and then say there's no vocabulary. Na'udhu billah. No, there's a lot of vocabulary here. You see, it starts 18, 38, 58, 51, 56, 31, 70, 33, 49, 92, 69, 40, 129, 114. And if you come down, Madina Book 3 is 2,231 words, kalimats, right? 2,231 on a rough figure. I just counted roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and multiply by 2 like that. But, you can argue with my counting and whatnot, but this is a deflated number, or if you want to say inflated number also. And these are the verbs. Again, if you multiply the number of verbs into conjugations, how many? 34, right? You're learning actually 30,000 words in its various form. But we don't do that because it might be like conjugations anyways. So in total, in Madina Books, you're learning around 3,500, right? On an average. If you want to reduce it, you can reduce it, or you can increase it also 4,000. On an average, you're learning, right? But what he did is he gives it simple, only 700. And book 2, you might be like, wonder, surprise, only 400. Why? Because he's teaching you how verbs work. So he's not focused on nouns and verbs and vocabulary, right? He's teaching you how things work. So with the same word, he'll teach you the haba, okay, conjugation. So he has 4 lessons for past tense, and then 4 lessons for mudare, 3 lessons for amr with the same verb. So he's explaining very slowly, very simply, right? Subhanallah. That's why even if you want to do Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, you should do book 1 and book 2 and then go. And just 1100 words. Not just 1100, but it takes time, you see. When it comes to book 3 is when he opens up the vocabulary, because now you're ready to do it. And 2,231, right? So this is how people who say, oh, there's very less vocabulary, they've not done books properly, they've not memorized 3,500 words. If they did that, they would never say this claim that Madina Books doesn't have vocabulary. That's a false claim, I would say. And there might be repetitions, there might be so many things. Even if you bring it down, okay, 3,000 or 2,500, it's still a lot, especially for those students who are not full-time students, right? Part-time students, and you're throwing them into Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, which will come to, and which is very vocab heavy, and you don't understand what's going on. You just have to memorize. Yep, this is Madina Books 3,433 words in my estimate, which I've counted in just 1 hour, 1.5 hour. So Madina Books 3,500 for a round figure, right? So this is, you have the vocab list in Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, right? We are talking about Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, and in the start, at the end of the book, there's a qaimat mufradat of every unit. But what happens is there's a lot of repetition here, right? Like this is the 4th book, and Sara Yasiru, for example, it has come before, I believe. Various words have come before. So these vocabulary also, there's a lot of repetition. For example, amana is used again. I mean, amana is so common. It has been used so many places before also. And this is the last book I'm talking about. So what they did was, just to show vocabulary, I don't know why, they include those vocabularies also which are like ta'rufu. We know already, right? And the simple word like izdihar, no, maybe elan, for example. It's a basic word. It's a basic word, nadara, or waraq, for example, leaf. So they've repeated all of these words. So you'll be like, oh, we are actually learning a lot of vocabulary, but there's a lot of repetition in this vocabulary list. There's a lot of, like Zama, to claim it has come before, right? But Madina Books, like I showed you, the ultimate Madina Books doesn't do that as such. It has very little limitation, and only new words, vocabulary are listed in the ultimate Arabic, the list. Like if you see here, the no words here are actually which has come before. There might be some words here and there, but because every word in Madina Books is important, every word has been thought about, right? So, there might be some repetitions here and there of these guys who have brought the vocabulary in the key, but hardly, for especially when the verbs of lessons of verbs come, there's hardly much repetition because there's a lot of new words which are coming, and he uses very this thing. Anyways, we are not talking about repetitions. It doesn't matter. But I find from my analysis, Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk has a lot of repetition in this list. In this list, it has a lot of repetition. Anyways, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. So starting, what I was doing is when you are counting, I was counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But then I realized I can count the dashes in between. So it's the count of dashes. Maybe 2 or 3 here and there. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, like that. I counted for each unit. So let's come back to the sheet and see how Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk treats with the vocabulary. So we talked about like Madina Books has 3,500. Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk. Okay, you want to learn Arabic? Khalas, come here. Okay, book 1, lesson 1. Memorize 60 or 55. I mean, you could say, well, they are less actually, 30, 40, but whatever it is. 40 you need to memorize, then 60. So they have an average of 40 to 60 if you notice, or 40 to 60. Sometimes it's 70, but that is what they average. So book 1, you have to memorize how many? 1029, and they don't explain anything. It's just practical conversation stuff, going to the plane and all that. Just memorize. So I've seen students who like, if I have to memorize, why am I here? Right? I cannot just keep on memorizing 50 words, 60 words per unit, especially learning online. Just sit and memorize without understanding what's happening. That's why if you've noticed in my Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, I've explained stuff. I've explained grammar also, so that for adults it becomes very easy because you know how structure works. Then for nouns you need to memorize plurals. For verbs you need to know the conjugation. So just if you understand, for example, istaghfara, istaghfiru, then you have 34 verbs in your hand, right? 34. Even if you 40, for example, if you include nahi also. But they don't explain. They just explain. Even if they introduce a 4-letter verb, they introduce it like a 3-letter verb, right? So it becomes memorizing. I mean, that's not bad, but people who don't like memorization, it's an issue. Especially for adults who are aged beyond 30 or beyond 25, it's a problem for us to memorize, especially online. That's a huge issue. Like, I want to learn Japanese by memorizing the dictionary, right? I mean, how weird will be that without understanding how structure works or whatever. And then in the second book also, if they've increased it a little bit, so 60, 90, sometimes 90, sometimes 80. Just a rough, I've counted the dashes, like I said, 40, 80, 53, 74. And there's a lot of repetition, like I said. So they're showing you there's 1,000 words, maybe 20% repetition, if you want to include. So you should reduce it actually, maybe. And then if you want to do the conjugation stuff, there are verbs also introduced. So I did not bring verbs in a separate column as such because they introduce it without anything. I don't know if the whole conjugation is used or not. So I did not do that. Anyways, we'll be lax. It's fine. 1,000 words. So every book has 1,000. Book 3, surprisingly, they reduced it and they just 100 short, 892. And then the last book also 1,000. So you're learning actually 4,058 verbs. And that is actually, I would say, deflated because they hardly explain the forms and all that. So you have to memorize more, 5,000, 6,000, because you don't understand stuff. So if usaidu comes, then nusaidu. If you don't remember the conjugation and whatnot, you have to memorize it separately, right? I help is usaidu. Nusaidu is we help. He helps is yusaidu. She helps is usaidu. If you don't know how it works. So yeah, this is an issue. So people who say Madina Books, so my conclusion is people who say Madina Books have less vocabulary. What is this? Even if you go by all of the figures, fine, 3,500, still we are reaching this number, right? Without verbs, without anything, just kalimats. 3,500 or 4,500. I'm just rounding it off to 3,500. And here we are rating 4,000. So what's the difference? What's the difference? And this Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk, from what I know, most of the, or not most, maybe half is there, half modern plus half this thing, and a lot vocab focus. So who wants to learn the Quran, for them, Madina Books is the best. And don't tell me that there's less vocabulary here. Look at this number. Have you actually done this properly and memorize all of these to say such statements? Yeah? It's such a bad thing to blame that there's less vocabulary. And this is just Madina Books. What about the side books? Inshallah, we have less resources. Nobody has taught. But inshallah, I hope to do all the side books. Then the argument is totally finished. You do all the 20 books. Yeah, we have 17 side books, right? You do all the side books and khalas. There's no argument at all. There's no need to go to Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk at all. But yeah, this is the book. Use it as a tool. It should not be something like, Jannah Jahannam kind of. No, yeah, use it as a tool. Do whatever book you want, whatever book your teacher is teaching, but know what you're getting into. Like I said last time, right? This is very vocab heavy. You have to memorize 60 to 70 per unit. And if you don't do it, later on, it'll become more difficult. More difficult. If you see these numbers, they just keep averaging 40 to 70, sometimes 90. But that's the average. 1,000, this thing. And there's a lot of repetition also. So I don't know how true this claim is also. 4,000, because there's a lot of repetition. Somebody does the work and brings only new verbs. I think this number will also come down, right? Just new words. This number will come down to maybe 3,500 or 3,000. Maybe 3,500 if you're being fair. But yeah. So I just went into a lot of detail just for you to understand that vocabulary. Madina Books also has a lot of vocabulary, lot, and it has a beautiful way of explaining. Someday we should do a video about beauty of Madina Books, how it tackles everything the smart way, inshallah ta'ala. But yeah, this is all between a war of what? War of religious Arabic versus secular Arabic, right? Religious Arabic, secular Arabic. So it's your choice what you choose, right? Barakallahu feek, Jazakallahu Khairan, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.